Oh, you have to turn it on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10 after 7, and we'll get started here if you want to take a seat. There's some up in the front. I know it's kind of like church and school. There's people that don't necessarily want to get to the front. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Rick Strankman. I'm your MLA, and for some there may be questions, but for others there probably isn't. And we were hoping to have this town hall while the debate in the legislature for Bill 6 was still in process, but that's been changed because I believe the public outcry against the legislation has been so extreme that the government simply wanted to shut it down, and therefore, with the power that they have in the legislature, they invoked closure. And what that does is it limits debate to only 1 hour for each cycle of the second committee of the whole and then third reading. Committee of the whole is where we speak about that at some length that we can, and we effectively could filibuster the legislation to hold it, and we did. Our team, the Wildrose and the PCs, and indeed Greg Clark with the Alberta Party, spoke, around till 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning to try and maintain that. And with the new legislation that's came forward, they started again the next morning at 9 a.m. and we went till noon, and then the proper cycle of question period, etc., starts over again. So primarily I'm now, because the bill has been passed, the Bill 6 has been passed, I'm here to take your concerns and hear that and answer what questions you bring. The legislation has been passed, as I'm repeating myself somewhat, and the government has said that they are going to come forward with the regulations probably into 16 and a full effect of it by 17. So it's kind of a reverse way of the process to actually have stuff brought forward, because normally in a proper situation, proper cycle, the demand or the necessity for the legislation would come from you, the people, and then in the legislature, we as your representatives would then formulate some legislation based off what the request is, and then we formulate legislation to go forward. So we're kind of in a reverse situation in this case, and with the NDP government, I've been, what I would believe a lifelong conservative, I've been trying to figure out why or what the reasoning is for bringing this forward, and I've only in the last day or so I've been able to come up with the words of ideological direction. Some people would say logical, but I'm saying with ideological. They simply want to do this legislation and bring it forward, and effectively they have the power and the will, and so they're going ahead and doing that. So I don't want to belabor the point too much. I know there are other subjects that we could talk about in the constituency, and I'm happy to do that. There's issues with the some of the staffing at Coronation and Concert Hospitals. I know those people aren't here tonight, but I can talk to you somewhat about that. And there's always issues with the contracting agencies that look after our highways and such like that. But primarily I want to give you what understanding I can of Bill 6. And we have a table over there. If there's any other questions you want to bring forward and you're shy to come to the microphone, by all means, Ken and others over there can take your concerns. And just for your information, this is a partisan meeting. In other words, this is not paid for in any way by the government. It's paid for by our Wildrose Constituency Association. This is a private meeting, relatively, calling for public input, but it's not paid for by the government through my constituency fund or my constituency office, even though I have my constituency assistant, Gary Weileman, over here. Gary, just put your hand up. Gary is from the Stettler office. Pat right down here is from the Drumheller office, and Laura's around. Laura's in the back corner there with the red jacket on. So if you want to approach those people, please do. And if there's anybody needs a kicking in the kneecap, come and see me. So with that, I'll take your questions. I should follow up and tell you that there's 3 chairs up here, and one of them should or could be staffed by an NDP. I specifically asked the Premier in a question in the legislature if they would attend to Hanna because of this issue. But primarily, I think a bigger issue for Hanna will be the dialing down, I guess, of the coal plant out here. And to that issue, the government has said specifically they will be taking direct action. I don't want to use the word attack, but they'll be taking direct action to coal-fired generation, electrical generation in the province. And I have great concern over that, and I know you, and I've talked to Chris Warwick. I don't know if he's made it here tonight. Chris, he said he was going to try and come over later, I guess. But we've talked about that, and I've talked to Robin Campbell, who is now the liaison, I guess, for the Canadian Coal Producers Association, and I'm hoping that we can get him out here at some point in time to understand the full effects of that coal thing. So if you have concerns about that or anything else, this is the time and place to bring that forward. So I'll shut the heck up and try and answer your questions. It's not like church.
Hello, Rick. For those who don't know me, it's Gerald Campion. I'm with Town Councillor here in Hanna. Rick, I attended the ATCO Westmoreland emissions thing today, and I'll tell you, it was just to let the people know, it was damn shocking to hear some of the predictions they said. They said that our power bills in 2018 would be $500 a month because of the tax credit, the carbon credits that she has slapped at us. Rick, what do you guys plan on doing with the employees and everything at this power plant and this mine when they do the dial down thing and get it in place? Because it's going to kill our town and the area around here. We have a lot of farmers that work at that plant and at the mine, and there's a lot of people involved in this.
So, thanks for that. I know, and that's why I have been talking to Chris about that. I can see, and it's a poor pun on words, but I can see that train coming because this government has done that. Personally, what I've done, and with the assistance of Jordan Christensen, the newly appointed chairman of the Special Areas Board, we've met with O'Neill Carlier. He's the Minister of Agriculture. And for those of you that don't know, his biography is that he's born and raised in Val-Marie, Saskatchewan, but his forte is irrigation. And there's the long talked about Special Areas Irrigation Project. People are telling me that I'm blowing it out my backside to even consider that. But I've been working with, and Jordan and I have met with O'Neill about that, the potentiality of developing greater irrigation. Also, I'm hoping to, and I haven't really done this specifically yet, but I know that in Germany, they've just came forward with, I believe it was 16 new coal plants, clean coal plant generation in a country that's right in the center of Europe and highly known for its environmentalism. And they too had solar and all sorts of alternate energy generation, but they found out that it's too expensive and it's not proper. So I'd like to learn to understand how that clean coal can be used, and hopefully we can present our arguments to the government that that this kind of coal plant out here at Sheerness is, and I heard that at the supper table tonight, is one of the cleanest coal plants that's available, and it's in one of the least dense population areas. So with the coupling of hopefully the irrigation development, it would be something that, because the development of the irrigation enhanced crop production would take up the carbon dioxide that they take off. So it would be hopefully a counteracting thing, and the irrigation would hopefully create jobs, it would create stability to this special areas region. And Mr. Carlier, when we presented the project to him, or the projects, he seemed to be receptive to it. And I think I can work with him on that. I can pressure him that. And so beyond that, our new environment minister, Shannon Phillips, is a very driven person. That's all I can say. And she is as ideological in her belief in alternate energy as the Premier seems to be on this legislation that just passed. So I have great fear about that, but I do believe that by trying to take a proactive stance at getting these people to work on these projects, that we can hopefully mitigate some of the problems that they want to bring forward. Like, for example, if the Sheerness plant were to be shut down or mitigated, how would the people at a lot of the Carroll side irrigation project, the water that comes from the Sheerness plant out here, I understand, does go on down and is used for irrigation. So this government doesn't have any understanding of the consequences to their actions. So we have to get on it and get ahead of them and educate them in that.
Rick Strankman, I'm John Satink, and I have a question for chair number 1, chair number 2, that's not here tonight. And I watched question period yesterday when they were closing for the bill. Can I talk to the audience? Thank you. I'm used to doing this. My question for chairs number 1 and 2, which is supposed to be representing this NDP government. From what I saw yesterday in question period, when one of their members got up and exclaimed, "This is how democracy works," do you people believe this is how democracy works? Thank you. You're not consulted. You're not talked to. You're not listened to. We have a problem. We have a big problem with this government. They have a mandate that does not include this population. There's only one way to get around this problem. This sign. Everybody else in the crowd, you have a sign like this. Hold that sign up. Hold that sign up high. This sign, when you can hold this sign and you can talk to other people in the public about what's happening in this province without them questioning you, saying, "Well, what are you going to do?" or "You can't do nothing." When you can hold this sign and people will understand what this sign means. This sign says, "Stand up for Alberta." This is our province. This government got elected in the cities. We're going to pay the price out here. We've been fighting for months against this government. We started in August. So right now, I'd like to call up Lauren Murphy and Julie France, who's been at this from the very beginning in August. Come on up, you guys.
Just while they're coming up there, John, I'd like to tell the folks that also in the last day in the legislature, I tried to communicate to all members in the chamber that we need to communicate. And as a result of that, a lot of the members on the other side in the NDP government got quite emotional because I think they realized that they've effectively stepped in it. And there are 11 to 15 MLAs on the other side who represent rural and have rural people, particularly the one from Leduc-Beaumont. He takes great pride in representing those people of rural background. And he, in the end, was there. He didn't vote for some of the part vote motions, but he did, in the end, stand up like a lemming. And we did have standing votes. And he did vote for the bill. It's it's quite something to see, ladies and gentlemen, to these people that are bound by, and I see some people in the crowd here wearing cowboy hats, effectively riding for the brand, and they'll ride for the brand right over a cliff. So, Lauren.
Come on up, Julie.
I'm just going to say thanks to everybody for showing up. And all we can say and all we can do right now is support these guys and stand up for Alberta. We can do this. We truly can do this. We've been fighting, like I said, since August. We're under the radar, but we're coming out strong. And we can do this. Do not feel defeated. Do not feel upset about this. We can do this. There are ways. It's going to take time, but we're going to do this. And with these guys behind us here, we're on it. We're on it. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, Julie, and my assistant Pat just reminded me, I'm getting to be, and this is to my activism role in the past, but I'm getting to be on a first name basis with the sheriffs in the legislature, and it's not because of the stuff I've done previously, although they do know, and they tease me that, Rick, you can't be taking any wheat into the chamber. But we have to be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, and at one of the rallies there, where the people were within the door's breadth of the legislative building, to be as respectful as you can, because as early as this evening, we've received emails as MLAs that the Sergeant-at-Arms has great concerns over some of the silly comments that other people have tried to use to bait us into saying silly stuff. And that's not who we are. I know that. But through social media and all sorts of miscommunication, people could get baited into saying something, and that is not who we are. But I know each and every one of you may have friends in an urban environment, and these guys have taken the leadership of going out and standing up for Albertans, and that's what we have to do. There are people at home now, I'm learning, that are watching what's called Assembly online, and that's watching us in the legislature. And I like to tease those folks to say, you need to get a life, because that's pretty painful watching that stuff in there sometimes. I really wonder why, but ultimately, if I can just ramble for a minute here, I learned from my activism role, thinking that, going forward with civil disobedience, and then we would find a judge that would rule to our favor. Well, that wasn't the case. These judges, what is written in the book as the law is the law. And the only way you can get that law changed is to get a majority in the legislature. And that's what John and the Murphets are talking about here, is spreading the word to stand up for Albertans. And if you have the patriotic belief in Alberta to stand up and talk to the person standing beside you at the Flames lineup, the person standing beside you at the grocery store in an urban environment somewhere. You all have friends and cousins, and many of you have in the past listened to Q91 or listened to Q91 Drumheller Radio. Jim Fisher, the talk show host from there, he always used to say during his agri-talk or whenever he can, supporting 4-H, is if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. And you would be surprised how many people, even though we think that there's a lot of people in the city think that their food comes from Safeway or the co-op, there's people out there that know different. And just the other night on a Wildrose teleconference town hall, we had people from Sherwood Park, from Stony Plain, and from an urban area in Calgary. I can't remember it just quite now, but they came on that teleconference call as Wildrose members and said that they are behind us. And that is significant. So that's what these folks are promoting, is a reinvigoration of your patriotism. We've been complacent about it far too long. So, Lauren.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and I guess you see the plebiscite there that everybody's signing. George Clark, he's the one that got that all started, and if you need any information on that, you can find it at our Stand Up for Alberta site. And one thing that Rachel Notley has done that's very positive for all the people in our province is she's teaching us to stand up again and speak out. You know, especially like the young people. We need to stand up and tell the government when we're not happy. That's why we're here now, because we haven't done it before. So now is the time to get together, stand up for Alberta. Thanks.
Evening, Rick. My name's Richard Preston, and I'm from just up north a few blocks. I live in town now, but what I've got to ask for a question is because we know what's going on right now. We're being taxed to death in several venues, and I don't hear anything coming from the people in the cities. They're going to initiate the carbon tax. That is going to be a killer. I think we need to bring this up. And January 1st, there's going to be a fuel tax added on. Don't hear anything about that. Initially, as soon as they got into power, higher corporate tax. What other legislation has been introduced that I'm not aware of? And what's coming down the pipe that you might know about that's going to tax us even more?
Thanks for that, Richard. The session is ended. To your comment about the legislation, so I don't really know what's in the hopper for coming forward. But I'd like to back up and talk about the taxation or the potential regime of that. I believe WTI West Texas Intermediate today closed at something around $36 or $37. So the price of oil is heading for the flusher, or maintaining a low price. So the revenue from that and the cost of production in places like the oil sands is somewhere around $60 or somewhere in that neighborhood. So they're bleeding red. And then the government has come forward with a royalty review. They're saying, "Oh, well, just wait. We're gonna put that off now till 2016." And then the potentiality of a carbon tax. I'm getting a list here, and for the ag producers, you know, there's this WCB OHS potentiality coming forward. The extra costs. So we don't really know how the carbon tax. You know, they're saying for the average urban household it could be as much as $1,000. But we don't know how it can all be, I'll use the word compounded, because every step along the way of a transportation or manufacturing process, there's always going to be a tax that's added on. So it's going to be kind of a cumulative tax. And then that tax is going to go towards the cost of distribution, the cost of manufacturing, and all that sort of thing. That coupled with now the minimum wage, is going up. That's a principled fight in my mind, that minimum wage isn't there for a lifestyle choice, it's there for an education choice. For people at a lower skill set can do those jobs. So I'm sorry, I can't really tell you what the net effect of all these taxes are going to be. Backing up to your comment about the fuel tax, they've increased the fuel tax on rail transportation from 1.5 cents to, I believe it's 5 cents per liter of diesel fuel that the railroads use, and then there's going to be the inclusion of tax for all bodies. So it's just onerous, and as people are struggling, people are getting laid off jobs by 500s in a business sector at different corporations here and there. We're hearing problems with upscaling of crime and abuse and mental health and all that sort of thing. So there's going to be a lot of societal issues that we don't even measure, Richard, and that's a fear that I have going forward. So I hope I've answered some of what you're trying to get at there. Beyond that, it's certainly onerous, I guess I'll put it at best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. And this, I guess, is just an observation, not really a question, but NDP said that they're going to balance the budget within their term. And what I see down the road, because they've basically said that there's no limit on how much money they'll borrow. So borrowed money and higher taxes, that's going to give us a balanced budget in 3 years or 4 years? So
well,
that's what I see.
And that's what I was talking about, the low price of the oil.
Yeah.
And the reduced sale of it. I mean, if there was a extreme demand for the oil at $36 or $40, whatever number you want to use in that range, then there's going to be a margin that you can make off the flow of it. But it isn't happening, and so the price keeps going down, and so the revenue stream it's like a compounding effect,
Right.
and that's the failure. Going back to the comments about electrical energy. In Ontario, where they've gone to a great deal of renewable energy, whether it be wind or solar and stuff like that. Now the information is starting to come out that they've paid something in the range of 37 or north of that, 37 billion in overpaid electrical prices. Mm-hmm. So yeah. It's just, and it's all based off an ideology. Yeah. It's all based off a belief that we're going to change the world. I've been a lifetime farmer. There's a breaking news story of an American movie actor that came to Calgary and experienced a Chinook, and he thought it was climate change, so, but I've been a lifetime farmer, and I'm and my son, we still have my cousin farms the Century Farm at home, but we don't want to pollute the ground. That's where we make our living. That's where we make our life. But we understand that we have to get to town. We don't want to take a bicycle or a sailboat or something like that. So we realize that there's a cost to doing that, and we're trying to modernize ourselves. It's of great frustration to me, Richard, to see the people of this same ideology. This country, we've pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps by using coal-fired generated electrical power. When I was born in 1953, my mother came to the farm the same time Power did. So that's how we developed that patch of farmland out there, was using coal-fired generation. Now this country or this government wants to shut us down, where China is, last year they put on 155 coal plants, and next year I think they're slated to put on over 300, or some significant number than that. So how can you be so sanctimonious when we've pulled ourselves up with the bootstraps and developed ourselves to who we are, and then tell somebody else that they can't do that, or we're going to moderate to something even more expensive, solar and wind, to generate our electricity. And they say, I'll pay a little bit more for my electricity. Well, tell that to the 500 people that got laid off here last week in Calgary.
Yeah, you mentioned too earlier about Germany opening up new plants and bringing back to life plants that they've had in mothballs for 25 years. At the same time, they are also not building any more wind turbines, and the ones that are wearing out, they're just leaving them because they can't afford to put up new ones. And our friends to the south across the border, they're making this noise that, we're converting plants over to natural gas. However, their coal production is not slowing down at all. They're just sending their coal over to China and India and Indonesia and anybody that'll take it. Now, this doesn't change the problem. It just moves it to another part of the world. And I'm a little skeptic about the CO2 BS anyway. To me, it is.
Can I ask another question of Chair number 3? Chair number 3, I've got a good question, and this is on our website. And I'm going to turn the mic around again. How many here How many here farm and mine? How many? How many are included in the power plant? Okay, let's play a little game here. Let's try and figure out what happened. Okay, I would like to ask chair number 3 about Dave Mowat and Peter Terekian, who are right now on the Oil Royalty Review Board. I would also like to ask chair number 3, how come that Dave Mowat has already been forwarded money for windmill construction? I would also like to ask Peter Terekian what he knows about this Bill 6. I would like to ask that of number 3 chair, who's not here to answer that. See, if they put it to natural gas, it's going to cost more to run that plant. It's going to cost more, which means, is my sign the right side up? Yep. It's going to cost more to run that plant. That cost is going to be passed on to you, all of you. And the result of that is they will get carbon tax credits. This is the point that it is. It's money. And I can't see the neighbors and people in this area that we've known for years get plowed under. And the only way we have is asking these questions, bringing this forward. There is definite conflicts of interest in this government. There is programs in place already. There are friends hired. There are union activists just waiting to form the Alberta Farm Workers Union. We are entering socialism. No, there's a big difference between socialism and communism. Socialism, you come out of it with nothing. They come out of it with lots. In our rallies, I have speakers come, and they give presentations, and they talk about environmental. I've had people come, and they talk about HR. I've had people come, and they talk about how this government was formed. So I'm going to throw some names at you. I'm going to throw Parkland Institute, a leftist association, an institute in the University of Alberta in Edmonton. That is funded by George Soros. I'm going to give you another name. I'm going to give you Pembina Institute. You're going to hear Pembina Institute all over the place in the next little while, quoting to you their environmental, statistics. That is Tides and Soros. This game is being played for money. This is why I say, people of Alberta, stand up. Be not scared to talk to each other in a restaurant or to somebody else at another table about what's coming. Talk about ways of dealing with this government. Petitions. Petition to plebiscite. If we manage between all of us to petition enough that we force a plebiscite on 2 of her bills, her government's in trouble. Right there. In the cities where the majorities are, and I got the maps on the wall, and I got the pictures with the maps, that's where the majority is. So we have people in the cities that are going to go out starting January, and they are going to start petitioning in their ridings. The electorate of those ridings. We need 20% of that riding in a petition to force recall. So if you folks have family in the city, if you call me, I'll tell you who's in what riding. And we have to start doing this, honest. If we leave it wait, and if we don't talk about it, and if we don't organize, we're going to lose. And I can't see that happening in my province. And I don't think you can either. So every time we get a chance, you stand up for Alberta. And when people talk about something in a restaurant and they're talking about the government, get over to that table. Give them information. If they need more information, call me. 403-823-7966. I'll give them everything I got. Come on this website. It is so important, especially for this area. In this area here, it's so important that we talk, because we stand to lose three ways. Oil and gas, we stand to lose with coal, and now we're going to get windmills on the farms. Bill 36 never got put to bed. Bill 36 is landowner rights. When I talked about this in Red Deer, I choked, because I had Shannon Brown come and give a beautiful presentation about socialism. And she talked about Ralph Weiborg. You've heard them say Norway. They compare everything to Norway. Ralph Weiborg has 5 definite steps for this province to control its people and its industry. And they have followed every 5. And we've let it. And we've been yelling at them since August. I need all of you. And what we want is they don't feel comfortable amongst us. They walk into Walmart, we're there. We are allowed to ask them questions about what's happening in government. We are allowed to walk up to them and say, Shannon Phillips, what are you going to do about this? Or Brandy Payne, what are you going to do about all this unemployment? How are you going to start helping people? Well, the NDP's answer to that is, well, why don't you guys all go to BC and get a job there? It's the truth. They have to realize that they have to walk past us in the stores, in the gas stations. You've seen the lady crying on the TV yesterday about this bill that went through. What I want people to understand is when they walk amongst us, they understand what they're doing to this province. And that is so important that we make them aware. You have every legal right to ask them a question in public. And I would ask them a lot of questions. We've started. Because if we do not start making noise, it's going to happen. This is our province. It was built by our parents, grandparents. It was put together for us. It's up to us now to get rid of this socialism. Anybody disagree with it? Stand up for Alberta. Make noise.
And just to follow up on that, John, in the legislature, and I was hoping that you would come tonight. Leila Ahir is the MLA for Chestermere Rockview, and she brought forward a private member's bill, Bill 206, that deals with recall. It's exactly what John's talking about here. That would have my understanding was 20% of the constituency's signatures, and then that would demand or require or request a by-election or a review of that MLA's requirement. That this government actually had recall in effect in the 30s, and because he was receiving kickback, I guess, from the citizenry, William Aberhart actually repealed that bill. And that is one of the problems of the legislature. When the legislature gets control, then they can actually do things like that. So ultimately, that's to what I was saying about my experience of civil disobedience, and then hoping that a judge somewhere would rule in your favor and find you less guilty. That's not the case. The change has to be made in the legislature. The change has to be made by the elected people. And when these people are accountable through recall, that's a way that it can be brought forward. So that's why John's encouraging you, and others are encouraging you to circulate amongst your circle of friends and make this position known. The legislation is there. One quick discussion. Is that the legislation is there about making WCB mandatory for farm workers on January 1st. Now, beyond that, and they haven't specifically talked about that, is OH&S, Occupational Health and Safety, and that is another arm of the requirements that will be coming forward under regulations. And that's the unintended consequences of what the government is bringing forward.
I was just going to ask you about the WCB if it's going to be absolutely mandatory, or have they amended it, or have they reworded it, or is it going to be absolutely necessary? And the OHS, are they going to be able to come into our homes if our offices are in our homes? How is that?
There's
work?
1,001. It's Julie, right?
Yes.
Julie, there's 1,001, and we learn about this. We learned about more ideas about that. To my understanding, the WCB will be mandatory. We tried to bring forward amendment that WCB would be an option. There are many farmers who have optional farm insurance for liability and coverage of their farms and of their operations, and that is not the case. It is WCB coverage. And we have video, YouTube, of Rachel Notley bemoaning the failure and the poor performance. I have two constituents right here, John Emmons and Maria Farmer, who have had horrible experiences with WCB. I've tabled stuff in the legislature about their case. I've tried to reach out to the MLAs of the time, and there's been miscommunication, and we've had our differences, we've had our difficulties, and I'm happy to discuss that. But WCB, there is a reason that the WC building has bulletproof glass in the entryway, is because of their appeal process. Now, I'm not condoning anybody create a requirement for that bulletproof glass, but it's a horrible organization. Yes, private agencies, private insurance has its issues also, but there's 101 cars out in the parking lot right here, and there probably isn't too many that have the same PLNPD license or insurers. So we made a motion to bring forward that a certain level of coverage, whatever it was, would be made optional. The provider could be optional, and that too. They all stood up like lemmings. No. This is the legislation as it is, and this is how we're going to do it. So as we come forward with these regulations, and they woefully, yesterday when I walked down the front bench on the other side wishing them a Merry Christmas, and some of them were, quite emotional about their performance that day. The old Rick, you can rest assured there's going to be studies. Do you want to be on the committee and the panel and whatever, And I said, well, there's 18 farm organizations that have been talking and writing you letters. Put them on there. I'm just a representative. Listen to what the people say. Well, we'll get around to that. Well, thanks for that. And that's the frustration. That's why, I tabled a stack of papers, 2,000 signatures from this constituency. It was that deep, and our whole caucus went through. I think we tabled 20,000 or something. Yeah, Pat is saying 30,000. Between petitions and signatures, and you're doing it again here. Sending your petitions, your signatures to the lieutenant governor. It's a broad spectrum of Albertans that are, and I'll be polite, not happy. So the government seems to be going ahead of no consequence. So I've talked to our caucus, and said we will see redemption. And after the floor crossing and of last year, we're coming up to the anniversary date of the floor crossing when people forgot who represent them, who they represent. That there was an article in an Edmonton newspaper source that says that there's nothing that reinvigorates an Albertan voter like anger. And if you can convey that message to the person standing beside you at the Safeway store, that you better know where that food comes from. It's not necessarily unionized labor, but it's a decent, respectful people, Albertans, just like each and every one of us. Then maybe that'll translate into an X, not beside an NDP name in the next election.
No.
Just to follow up to this floor crossing, and I have to speak to that. If there is one thing that I've learned through this whole process, that I don't really have opinions in this thing. My job is to hear you and to hear your opinions bring forward. So I know you're quiet and respectful. It's almost like church mice here tonight. But please, this is what we're here for. You can stand up and be loud and proud.
I'm just curious about whether she said anything about implementation of Bill 6. I can see that in my mind, a lot of farmers and ranchers are thinking like non-compliance. Like if I just continue to have my worker and let's say I start paying them cash and, you know, as long as I'm being as safe as I can and as long as nothing happens, you know, does she have her little OHS members ready to march and find us? And like, what's going to happen in those situations?
It could be horrible. It could be horrible. At one of the rallies, and I'm not sure if it was at Athabasca or Vegreville, but one of the ministers actually said, well, maybe you could find a way to pay that person under the table.
They said that?
I'm sorry, I didn't. Yeah. I understand it was a medicine hat. They said you could pay that person under the table to the OH&S police, if you will, or the enforcement. Yeah. Certainly. I live 6 miles from Saskatchewan, and they can't get to my farm and get at home before dark, and you know, the 8 to 5. So there's a pretty good chance. But if there's an accident out there,
I know, like that's
then all of a sudden, then they can come on your farm and you know, like the young unfortunate accident there, young boy at Killam, I believe it was, or Lougheed Hutterick colony, 10-year-old boy got killed. The family can deny OH&S now, you know, to come onto the farm. Well, effectively, you know, the concern is if you're harvesting and something happened, would that mean that whole farm would be shut down? Last night at Josephsburg, a guy brought up the possibility of all farm buildings are built to a different code than, say, this building. Yeah. This building is built to a commercial or an industrial code. So is that what they're saying? All the legislation does is take there's certain sections and they add agricultural to the OH&S pamphlet. And so, you know, the people that have worked in the oil patch, they say the first half inch or 3/4 inch of the booklet is what you have to comply with.
Well, and what concerns me too is, so they say that the regulations are going to be worked out now with us, apparently. After we haven't been consulted in the first place, who's going to step ahead to be like, oh, I'll help you with those regulations? Like, I get that we probably should because they're going to be dangerous if they decide what they are. But, yeah. They've broken the trust of Albertans, and that's what it is. And that's what a lot of us live by. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of business in this province done by a voice on the phone. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're a ranch woman or not, but probably your husband has ordered, you know, through an order buyer, you know, buy me 35 bred heifers. Right.
And it's just a voice on the phone. And when those animals are there and there's a check goes back, I mean, that's how we do business. So it's based on a level of trust to the fabric of the province. And you're exactly right. If they're going to do this after the fact, you know, one of the questions I asked one of the ministers is, are you going to make sure there's an appeal process in? I mean, to a regulation that, and we never, unforeseen, even by all these farm organizations, are you going to have an appeal process in there so that maybe this farm safety panel or farm advisory board or whoever it could be could hear an appeal from a special case?
Right.
Well, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, maybe they should have.
So legally, what we have to do now, if we don't want to have all that, is hire a farm worker contracted in that has their own insurance, right? Is that?
Well, that would, to my understanding, they would have to be WCB compliant, though.
Right.
And
no
your
other,
workplace
yeah.
and your farm has to be WCB
Still has
compliant.
to be OH&S. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
It's.
Talk about WCB.
Oh, now they're going to fight over the mic here.
No, we're not going to fight over it. But yes, let's talk about WCB and meeting in Medicine Hat just for a minute. One of the MLAs, you're quite right. She said, when I was a girl, I used to pick rocks at my grandmother's, and when I went off to college, they gave, between her parents and her grandmother, they gave her a house, and this was to compensate her. And she said, well, yeah, that's what you can do. You can slide it under there. And at that time, There was a rep from WCB there, but she didn't say anything. But a little later on in the meeting, because the thing with the T4 slip came out, you know, oh yeah, if you got a T4 slip, well then you have to follow the WCB regulations. But if you don't have that T4 slip, no, you don't need to. And she stood up, the WCB representative that was there, and she said, it doesn't matter how that money transfers from one person to another. It is or has to be reported. WCB will get their share. So to begin with, it was all miscommunication, because WCB was one of the first ones that stood out and said, this is what the regulations are, when people started making noises and say, hey, this thing is not right. And they were just doing what was required of them because they had the regulations in their hand. They knew what they were. But the government, the NDs, they said, well, no, we really didn't intend any of this stuff, and we were going to do this, and we're going to exempt the Hutterites, and we're going to exempt farmers that have no employees, and all this, that, and the other thing. If we hadn't said a thing at that time, that bill would have went through, and every farmer rancher in this province would have been paying it come January 1st. I am sure of that.
Yeah, I believe that too, Richard. And they've, you know, with the first piece of legislation, ladies and gentlemen, was approximately 5 pages long, and the amendments then that came forward were the same length. After the stuff started hitting the fan, you know, so.
Okay, to the lady who was saying about just making all of your farm workers have WCB, you also are bound by the Employment Standards Act. So if you're supplying the equipment and the tools for them to come and work on your property, they cannot be a contractor. If they're coming in with their own tools and equipment, then they are a contractor. So you will have to have them as an employee. The other thing, so on Section 6 of the Act, this is OH&S, there is an OH&S council, and the people are appointed by the Lieutenant Governor.
This is the OH&S Act?
Yeah.
This isn't Bill 6 then?
Well, it is with Bill 6, right? OH&S, the OH&S legislation?
Not to my understanding, no. It's primarily about the WCB.
Well, there's the WCB, in Bill 6, yeah. WCB and the OH&S.
Well, that's my misunderstanding, though, is that there's 2 parts to it. The WCB is the Workmen's Compensation Board, and the OH&S, but the OH&S follows from the WCB, correct?
No, there's sections. It's in the section. She's talking about the section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we on the same page now?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah? Okay. So in the OH&S Act, there's an OH&S council that they have. And there's 12 people appointed on that council that look after the codes and the regulations. So my question is, how can we have farming representatives on that council? Because the election comes, they're to be changed out. I think it's either every 3 to 5 years, and there's new people appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. So the next one is in May of 2016. So how can we have someone who's representative of the ag community on that council?
Well, what you're saying is they're not elected.
No, they're appointed by the Lieutenant Governor.
And well, what I understand is, and there has been some discussion, that over 200 agencies in relation to the province of Alberta, agencies, boards, and commissions, are going to be under review. And there is a potentiality then, I guess, with public pressure that panel could be expanded to include, all the agricultural stakeholders.
Is that what they're planning to do?
There's no definitive to this. No.
Nobody said anything.
And that's the problem. It's all after the fact.
Okay.
And that's the ongoing problem. I'm sorry for my misunderstanding,
No, that's
because we didn't get into depth of the legislation.
Yeah.
We just know that agriculture is added to all these sections of the act.
Yeah, and you're bound by the codes and regulations in that, and then that's where they, have you comply with everything. So there was also another are you familiar with Farm Safe Alberta? Because they apparently had a little bit of the same kind of organization going on.
And the Alberta Farm Safety Advisory Council?
Yeah.
Those were all parts that the previous Progressive Conservative government was working on and involved with. Like one of our constituents here is from East Central Alberta. He's now the president of the Alberta Turkey Commission, and he and I have been close on some of these discussions. And their organizations have been in consultation. They've been trying to work it through. And then to the example that I used of Josephsburg last night, it was like when the election took place, there was like a tectonic shift of the Earth's plates, and communication just went and it's lost. And the government they've been meeting with these people, but only in a plutonic way. They haven't actually taken information and their recommendations, to go forward. So that conversation was in progress, but it's all seems to have been lost. They just want to include the farm workers, and with no other consequences or anything.
So we don't know at this point in time if we're going to have separate regulations under this, or are we going to be so the oil that was generally made for the oil and industry,
and the industrial.
Are they just going to be putting those?
Well, it appears that that's the case.
So how about are we able to do any exemptions or modifications, or that's all still up in the air?
Keep the cards and letters coming in.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I recently was at the Special Areas Advisory Board meeting, and I told them, I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of this.
I just want
Okay.
one more thing. So then, us as citizens, and then writing more letters to our MLA, perhaps saying how we can have someone on that OH&S council that's representative of.
Any idiosyncrasy that you find, and that's why I introduced my assistants here. For my case, but primarily if you're involved, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, your occupation.
Yeah.
But if you raise poultry, or if you raise pork, or you're a member of the Barley Commission, for example, send your letters to those organizations so that they have a chance also to have input.
It would have to be, I guess, specifically on this council.
Yes, but to your point there, because a stakeholder organization has more weight than letters, or letter to them. I'm not trying to berate your letters. Don't get me wrong, but when you send it to a stakeholder organization, a broader organization, then they, maybe they're getting those letters from another participant.
Okay, from the meeting in Medicine Hat again, that was specifically asked about OH&S. It came from both the MLAs that were sitting there giving answers or non-answers. They said OH&S will be reviewed to fit the agricultural sector. No details, no nothing. So we have no idea what that means, because there was challenges on it. What does this mean? And basically it was a shrug. They had no idea. But yeah, OH&S will become part of the package when they're done with it. Number one is WCB as of January 1. OH&S will fit into the picture. There's no two ways about it. But they're going to, they're going to review it. And we have no idea what that might mean.
I got a couple of questions or comments, I guess. Being an oil field worker.
Lauren, tell the people who you are.
Oh, okay. My name's Lauren Murfitt, and I work in the oil field and I farm both. So when this Bill 6 come out, and I looked through it, the family farm, of course, is a big concern. But knowing the regulations, lots of bells and whistles go off, lots of alarms, tons of them. We talk about amendments to this bill. Are they prepared to amend the OH&S regulations to fit, like as far as core safety programs, all the training, hazard assessments, the fines. These fines are set for major oil companies and industry. They are not set for farmers. These fines could make people lose their farms. And that also goes with employee standards and labor relations. These fines are high there too, $30,000 to $100,000 in under those legislations. This bill covers 4 major parts of legislation, and they just toss it under Bill 6, and the average person doesn't understand these regulations or the legislation. Right away, it's the family farm, but there's a million bells and whistles and alarms going off here. They all need to be amended. Are they prepared to do that?
Not to my knowledge, Lauren. They want to do it under one bill, and that's one of the Wildrose's suggestions, is that we would go back to those 4 departments that you've mentioned that are affected by it, and we would have relationships with each of the agricultural organizations that relate to all those 4 departments, and then we would go from there with our, hopefully suggested stakeholder input legislation. That's that would be the Wildrose idea to do it, is to bring forward those recommendations from the stakeholder organizations to those various agencies, make your changes, and then you could bring it forward in a single piece of legislation with the consultation of the people. That's the whole, like I said earlier, when I spoke in the legislature on Thursday, I said, how can we stand here? We're using the same language. We're speaking English. We're using the same language. Why can we not communicate? And if we're not communicating and we're having a brawl, why is there thousands of people out, in various rallies across the province, in various locations, cavalcades and convoys and all sorts of things. And to that end, I think it's important that everybody knows, and I don't see any here tonight, but at the Bassano rally, Derek Fildebrand's thing, there was a goodly number of Hutterite people there, of the Hutteran Brethren, and they have great concern because those Hutterite people are here because of persecution that they've received in other countries, and they came here, and now they're starting to find out that they may be, under this legislation, they may too also be persecuted because of the different religious belief that they have and the way they may treat their inter-family relationships, because there may be T4 slips paid there too. And it may separate them from, and they are standing with the agriculture community. They want to be recognized as farmers. They want to be recognized with each and every one of us in this room. And there was almost a standing ovation for that belief. I was pleased and proud and heartwarmed to see that. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Well, like you say, just to seeing it from a company side, like, the bigger companies, it takes a long chain of command to police your OH&S employee relations. You got safety coordinators and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can't throw this onto a farmer. It's day and night. It can't work.
Well, our way, or our model, possibly, and rather than being in a punitive fashion, Lauren, like on our farm, we have an environmental farm plan. And initially, when I heard about that, I poo-pooed it, and I thought, it's ridiculous. Well, no, once you take the course, you learn how they'll give incentive benefits to portable corrals, portable windbreaks, water systems, water delivery systems, solar panels, alternative energy, heaven help us, and GPS farming and all that sort of stuff, and that is an incentivized way of getting people to do this. If they would give us incentivized ways to create a better environment, I mean, it's to human nature to do this, rather than just put it on in a punitive fashion and then do a hit and miss policing. They've talked about hiring some 15 to 20 different employees to be effectively policemen for this. Well, at 15 employees or 17 employees, they'd have to do 700 a day to get to all the farms. It's just, it's just onerous. So are they going to hire a whole other department of people to do that? Is it going to make Alberta significantly safer? Probably. Show me the stats. Yeah, like, it's onerous.
Well, I just think it's a lot of information, and just for one single person or a small farm, it's too much. And if they're willing to go through all of it and work on creating something that can work, that's one thing. But tossing it out the way they have is not going to work. Yeah.
Rick, my name's Murray MacArthur, and I looked on the internet the other day and I saw there that you were a rock star.
Well, you got to get a life.
So, yeah. Anyhow, I never met a rock star before, let alone one from Ontario, but congratulations. Anyhow, my point is I would really like to thank you and your colleagues for all the work that you've done, the late nights, the countless hours of driving, the untold hours of sitting across from the...
You're not paying us enough for sitting across from them guys, I'll tell you.
Okay. Anyhow, thanks very much to you and your colleagues, especially to you as our MLA. Best in the holidays, and Happy New Year with your new, when the legislature sits again.
Thanks for that, Murray.
Hello, I'm Cordell Griffith. I'm a rancher, farmer. My question is, maybe this is bringing awareness to a loophole, but I employ 2 hired men who I have under WCB. Now, from my understanding of WCB is I pay a percentage on what I pay them throughout the year, and I have a 15-day period from the day they start working for me to when I have to put them on workers' compensation. Now, when it comes to things like periodic help from a neighbor or a branding that takes 1 day to do, or things like that. Now, in the case that I don't comply with insuring them all under WCB right off the get-go, and I have a branding that goes problem-free, after I have that 15-day window, making honest people into criminals would be like telling me that I have to insure them people after it was problem-free. And if I have a 15-day loophole that where it was problem-free, who am I to phone and say, oh, by the way, I owe WCB for these 50 farmers and ranchers that come to help me do my branding? So my answer to you, or my question to you is, now is that breaking the law?
Cordell, if the tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there, does it make a noise? And actually, ladies and gentlemen, if you're the guy that I think you are, these folks came all the way to Edmonton with their family to the rally, and they had a bus from Wardlow?
Cessford
too, and they deserve a hand for doing that too, you guys. Or maybe I could do it a different way. If your wife gives you an order and you don't hear it, did it happen? You know.
Well, I just see this as a a little bit of a way around it. I don't want to make a whole lot of awareness to it for fear that there will be something put in there so you can't do that. However, I think that just that single cost, even though it's voluntary help, they want you to put a value of service on that and keep track of the amount of hours that they do for you, and then you pay accordingly, whether it was problem-free or not. And so I don't know what that cost would be, but that 1 day could be fairly expensive. Well,
that's like my assistant Pat here. He talked about guys working in the oil patch, and we've heard that it involves a bunch of creative thinking And to what I was talking earlier about a voice over the phone or the fabric of our province, it's not who we are. You know, we you know, I mean, all of a sudden you got to figure out how to ways to skate through this thing, you know, and then, you know, if something did happen, you know, like something catastrophic happened, say the herd snapped off a gate post and one of those little ones was behind it and had a bad incident, well, then what are you going to do? You know, and why? You know, why should you have to do that? It's not who we are. You know, I mean, and I've completely sympathize with you, you know, because there's, you know, that there's trees that have fallen over out there by Esther and nobody heard it either, you know. And there was I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. And then so just referring to what Lauren had to say?
Lauren.
Yeah. So with what OH&S brings to the farmer and WCB and all the paperwork that goes along with it, it makes a single-family farm who maybe don't have to employ so many people to the point where now, unless we have great wives, which we all have, it makes it so it's that much more difficult for them or us, if we're doing it, to follow all that paperwork, and leads us to where we're forced to have to hire people on our farm, which comes with more cost and all the rest. And that's not really a question. That's just how I see it. That's just more that we have to put out.
Well, or in the case of to the onerousness of, like in our case, in our family farm, we normally hire an extra operator in the fall. And is it worth the expense of going through all that OH&S protocol for maybe 2 months, maybe 2 weeks of harvesting in the fall? Because you have to have that OH&S criteria there the whole year, you know, beyond that, to my understanding. You can't just have it, you can't just, you know, have the fall protection on your grain bins or all that sort of stuff. You can't just turn the switch off and on. It's not like adding another employee to a work site that already has the full complement of all the requirements. And so then you get into, like I said earlier, 1,001 different scenarios of compliance or non-compliance. And you start to find out things like you're just describing. Well, then, we can get by this year, and you do. Maybe you can get by with that for 10 or 15 years, but then maybe a horrible thing happens, and then it turns into something that you never even dreamt of.
Right. Thank you.
Hello, my name is, get this mic up here a little higher. My name is Joe Lenfesty. I work on a small family farm, and I also work in the oil patch as well. My question is Premier Notley has been flouting this as being workers not having safety protocols in place, where farmers have already implemented the systems and they're working quite well. And one common thing that comes up in her speeches is that farm workers deserve the right to refuse unsafe work. Now, I don't know of any single farmer that will refuse within grounds unsafe, like will fire someone over refusing unsafe work. So my question is did Premier Notley or any of the NDP actually discuss it with farm workers as to whether they wanted this legislation or not?
Well, that's a fair question. That's a fair question. In the previous cycle of the government in the evening, and even now, we saw Premier Notley giving the thumbs up to two members of the Farmers Union of Alberta sitting up there. And I specifically asked them how many members belong to your organization. They will not give me an answer. To your comment about refusing safe work, Minister Sigurdsson said they want to make sure that in the case of a farmer who is required to stick his hand into a turning piece of equipment to pull out a blockage or something, that farmer would be able to refuse that job. Well, is there anybody around here that would stick their arm into a running piece of stuff knowingly to pull it out? Or even more, is there anybody in this room that would ask their employee to do that? Exactly. It's dead air. You know? So it's like they think that we're slave drivers or telling these guys, you know, with a whip, you know, go and lean into that block of stone that you're pulling there on the wooden rollers or something. It's not relevant. To the full aspect, though, with all due and absolute respect, we always, in our Wildrose, and every time I do that, and that's why I'm doing it now, capital letters, SAFETY, safety. And even though Alberta, to the statistics that we've seen, even though Alberta has little or no regulation in this regard, we have statistically the same or less incidents than other provinces. The government talks about the reduction of in BC about the the reduction of farm accidents being 60% once they introduce this legislation. I don't know where they're getting that stat from. We can't find it in our researchers. Our researchers can't find that, and we've specifically asked them to look for it because that's what they're quoting, and we want to be able to refute that or find out the source of it. We haven't been able to find that. So that's part of the reason what I understand that Alberta has been hesitant. You know, and earlier someone else brought up the Alberta Farm Safety Advisory Council and Farm Safety Net Group or whatever it is. That's the government's way of trying to bring this education forward. So I don't know, I'm getting kind of dry up here. Is there anybody else who would like some coffee or anything? And we'll come around if you want to ask some more questions or however you want to do this. What's your thought? Okay.
Hi, Rick. Brad Mappin. I wanted to switch gears here on you for a minute and just talk to you about carbon tax. Through the legislation, all we ever heard for the farmers was what we're going to be paying, for cows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We never heard both sides of the story as to what's going on in agriculture with carbon. As you're probably aware, forests, wetlands, and grassland is basically what sequesters carbon. Those are your three top areas of the world that sequester carbon. With the amount of carbon that these guys have in storage in grassland, bush, stuff like that, why are they not being compensated for the carbon that they are storing versus what they're going to be paying in tax?
Good. That's a good point. Somehow, Brad, the formulas for bringing that carbon sequestration formula forward were misappropriated, I guess I could say, or miscalculated, and a lot of that needs to be reevaluated. How they're going to do that and how they're going to bring that forward, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. They simply want to tax anything that's related to that. Earlier on this evening, I had a conversation with a younger housewife, I'll say, about the cattle and the and the methane gas and that sort of thing. So, how they're going to come forward with some of that stuff, we don't have a definitive answer, and that's the onerousness and the snowballing effect of some of this legislation that is going to be inhibitive on all our industries in so many ways that we haven't even thought of yet. So I hope I answer your question somewhat, but that's where we're at. Maria.
I'm short. Okay, for the record, John and I did not vote NDP. Just had to tell you. Okay, I have a lot of concerns with the Workers' Compensation Board, as we all know. It's closer. Okay. Now, I've had a lot of issues with them, and I've learned a lot of things. My main concern is when WCB, you give them information, they have the right to take that information and share it with anyone they deem to be appropriate without your knowledge or consent. The minute you give it to them, that's it, it's gone. I've had that fight with them many, many times. Now, there's another point, too, about contractors. How does that work? Now, you know, I run both sides of the fence. My hands are in a little bit of everything. John can go and work anywhere, okay? He can work for Oil Patch. Oil Patch does not have to pay him unless they get a clearance letter from WCB. He has his own WCB coverage too. So, like, we're running both sides of it there. So, I mean, it's a concern. I don't know where it's going to go, but whatever. Just keep your heads up on that one.
Well, if I'm reading this clearly, Maria, like at Bassano, there's a feedlot operator that made concerns about farmers delivering grain onto his feedlot operation. Mm-hmm. If that farmer delivering grain or is not WCB compliant, then it wouldn't be necessary that feedlot operation pay him for his services.
That's right.
i.e. pay him for the grain that they delivered.
They have an option. They can either cover him for WCB coverage, or they don't have to pay him. We've gone down that road, so we've learned through that. So, I mean, it's one thing to be very cautious about. I mean,
well, like I'm trying to say, you know, and you're right, Maria, that there is 1,001 idiosyncrasies to this conundrum, if you will, and that's why. And I don't have a list, ladies and gentlemen, of the 18 different farmer stakeholder organizations that are concerned about this. They want to be able to have their right to properly have their input into this situation, so that they can speak about idiosyncrasies just like you're talking, and making sure that there's, you know, just to give it as a blanket way, that there could be an appeal process for something that, well, that's yeah, and you well know.
Oh, I know better than anyone.
And yeah, okay.
Which is another thing we did. We went to an appeal, and yes, thank you. We did go to an appeal. Okay, John and I do help some farmers. Okay, and it's volunteer work. And my good God, she had a fit up there. How dare you go and help somebody for nothing? We're like, what? We can't help a neighbor. We can't help people that need it. Why not? But she was very offended that John and I would actually go and help do branding or anything like that. I mean, that's the mentality of the Appeal Commission and the bureaucracy of the government. That needs to change. They need to understand that.
Thanks for that, Maria. And that's. But that's why we brought forward the amendment of making WCB a choice, you know, to allow Albertans choice.
Hello, Rick. Neil Rose here. It looks like we got about 3.5 years we got to put up with this for now. Is the next government in a position to get rid of some of these bills that are coming through?
Yeah. That's why I started out, Neil, by saying that through my activism, I've learned that the chamber is supreme. Having said that, who's to know what damage this organization will wreak before we get there? And from my federal experience, even though Stephen Harper was elected Prime Minister for a number of years in a minority government, he didn't specifically have the power. But I was blessed from my activism role that when he did get the majority in 2012, that Jerry Ritz was knocking on the PMO door before the short pants crowd even were woke up that morning and said, we're going to bat with Bill C-18, the Canadian Wheat Board bill. And so they changed the course of the ship, and that's where the chamber is supreme. In other jurisdictions of the United States where the judges are elected in their local thing, then they are more responsive to the people, to the will of the people. So, you know, and there's good and bad to that too. I mean, I don't have an opinion on that. I've asked about having elected or conversed with lawyers about having elected judges in our jurisdiction here. And that's a whole other discussion for another time. So, you know, yes, I guess in another way that we can change this, but we have to get that majority in a responsible, respectable fashion. We have to get that majority, and it's so unfortunate that you know, a year ago now, people were intoxicated, I'll say, with the potentiality that they had the smarts, and they didn't listen to their electorate, that they were going to make all the differences, singularly, without the support of the grassroots.
Hi, Rick. Matt Clark, farmer and work at the plant. Cordell was talking about neighbors and friends coming to help out and volunteer. What's this going to do for kids in 4-H fattening their own steers and selling them? And, if I can't wait for my little boy to come and toss his first calf at a branding. So how's that going to affect them? Are we looking at child labor laws now too? Or?
Well, that's part of some of the problem. They're saying for unpaid farm labor that they're not covered. But we all know that those young kids, and my kids were in 4-H too, that the sale of that calf then goes to their schooling, or to whether they want to buy something with it or whatever. That's their way of learning how to be responsible. And I don't know that they get a T4 for that, but it's part of a payment. So whether there's going to be police at the 4-H auctions, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. But it's just overwhelming, the technicalities that are being brought forward. To my understanding, they're unpaid, but if somebody took it to a court, they may be able to say that they are.
Hello, I'm Ida Musgrove, and I'm from Jenner, so I get to go all over. Anyways, I did not vote NDP either. I have one thing I really want to get through, and that you can take back to legislature. The other day, I was in Medicine Hat. I stopped in a restaurant, mom and pop, small restaurant, right? And I ordered supper and a pop. My pop was delivered by a 2.5-year-old child in diapers. WCB and HMS and everybody else can't do the job that they're supposed to be doing right now, let alone taking on all of the farmers and ranchers in Alberta. This is absolutely ridiculous.
If I could say in open humor, there's a lot of unemployed oil workers. Maybe they'll go and work for the government.
But we're talking, they're saying that we take advantage of our kids. Mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop businesses all over the province have child labor. And I'm not joking. I have grandchildren the same age, and they are not serving me in a public place, right? So there was probably a 10-year-old in the back doing dishes, right? Grandma was sitting in the corner sleeping. She's supposed to be watching the kids. I know how it works. But if they can't even control the businesses that are under this, and now they want to bring 45,000 more businesses underneath this, and it's not going to work. It's just mind-boggling that she can even do that. Second thing that I want you to take back to her from me, and if you want me to come up there and tell her to her face, I will. Has she ever heard of political terrorism?
Well, you have to be so careful with that, and that's what I was talking about earlier.
I'll say it.
Well,
if you don't want to,
no,
I will.
No, there's a way to, and I have to be careful how, there's a way to effect that political terrorism. In 3.5 years from now, when you get a chance to make that X, and everybody that you know and everywhere you go, don't put your X beside an NDP.
I didn't. I told you I didn't.
I know, but you tell all your friends that.
My friends didn't either.
Well,
I told them not to. I told them not to.
Well,
our lawyer actually, I'll
tell
you a really funny story. After the NDP got in, our lawyer put orange pens in his office, and I told him, you've got to get rid of them. Those are NDP pens. What in the hell are you doing? I'm conservative. I told him that. She needs to realize, and I think what the problem is that everybody is just being way too nice. She needs to realize that we never did fight with gloves. Okay? We're going to fight her every way we can, and we are going to win because we won against the other one, and I'm telling you, she needed to go. She needed to go, and now this one needs to go.
Well, yeah, I hear you loud and clear, and that's something that we have to do is stand up for our rights.
But why? She's never been hit with conflict of interest, has she?
Not
has
to my
her
knowledge.
husband been brought into this?
There's been discussions of that,
And what happened?
I don't know what's happening there. There may be some people understanding that going forward.
Yeah,
investigations. There are investigative journalists that may look into the effectiveness of that.
Oh, okay. Could you get me their names so that I can talk to them?
It's an interesting conundrum. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have some cards at the back here, and it's to raise it's the fundraising for our constituency here, and there's envelopes at the back, and our CA president Ken Perot is sitting at the desk there. He's the white-haired gentleman. He actually has hair. And it's not because he hasn't tried to pull it out, because Ken has been involved back in the reform days of the province here federally, and he's well respected, at least in my view, as our CA Constituency Association president. So you guys have been so respectful here tonight. I was expecting a little more rowdiness. Maybe we should add some of the goose juice from the Canada Grey here, or something like that. I know that tends to wet a whistle every now and then. So, John.
Can I say one more thing to everybody? Okay.
Stand up for Alberta.
Stand up for Alberta. You guys have seen what's happened since May, right? This government has an open attack on industry. A Reeve from the county of Leduc approached me at the last rally at the legislature and said, I'm concerned. So much industry has left Nisku that we only have 65% of the money allotted from taxes to support next year's programs. There's one more large company going to pull out of Nisku. And he said, that is terrible. He said, that's going to put us down to 35%. Why do we have the Farm Bill? Why is David Mowat involved? Who's Peter Trebekian? Think about it this way. This government has had an open attack on the oil industry and has forced large projects to quit and has forced investment capital to stop. When that happens, you now reduce your tax base. They have had a hand in unemploying anywhere between 50 and 75,000 people. Now, they'll say it's the price of oil. From the Fraser Institute, they released a 7-page document that states right in it, the cost of government in their overspending and their addition of extra borrowed monies and the prediction of a huge deficit is 70% responsible for the condition of this province. So now, what's left? I'm looking at all of you right now. So figure it out. 43,000 farms. Let's give it an average estimate of $5,000 when they come out to investigate you and probably find some things. Let's say $5,000. In this province, we're looking at $215 million in initial fees. That hits home, folks. You are going to pay. It's that simple. They shut down the coal mine. They got to turn up the power plant, right? So now they put more gas in. Gas is more expensive than coal. Your power rates are going to go up. Right there. Because of this environmental idealism. But right now, what's left is the people that are the very backbone of this province, with nowhere to go. They can't pull up and leave. Think about it carefully. Treasury branch, farm credit. Think about this carefully. This is a huge cash grab. I'm looking at the people in this room that are going to support this government that has already bankrupted this province. Once again, I ask you, stand up for Alberta every chance you get, because they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going. Thank you. I'll give you the mic back.
Thanks for coming out, you guys. Well, sir, you have another comment?
Yeah, I'm Justin Griffith. I was just wondering, I read that Brian Jean was talking to the PC about making one party. I think that there would be more of a chance of a majority to get rid of this Bill 6, 36, 50, all them, if we could just make one party. We split votes and we got an NDP majority. So maybe we should just have one party and stop splitting votes, and we wouldn't have the situation we're in right now.
Thanks for that. That's a good comment. Yes, those comments have been made, and yes, there is discussions ongoing, but that has to come from you. That can't come from a singular leader or whatever. You need to know that there are people that are talking about that, and that has to come from you. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing that subject up.
So I know you think that we're all really quiet and modest here tonight, but I think the thing is that we're let down when we've spoke out and we've gotten mad and we screamed and we haven't been listened to. And there's nothing we can do now. It's past, right? So my question to you is, what does the Wildrose think we should be doing next? Is the plebiscite enough?
That's a start, but moreover, you need to be safe on your farms. I see you have your little one with you, and I'm pleased and proud that you brought him up. But the other thing is you need to talk to your friends and neighbors. Like I said at the outset, when we were talking about having this meeting, we thought that the legislation was still going to be discussed into Tuesday of next week. And because the government evoked closure on Wednesday night, that put the brakes on all this, on everything. So, there was even plans for a giant rally on Tuesday of next week in Edmonton to effect to the government that you guys are not happy. PO'd might be another word. Excuse me. So, I can't reiterate it enough that you have to, even though people like the Griffiths there brought buses and are effective, talk to people on your Facebook, talk to people wherever you can.
I feel like the people who, disagree with Bill 6 and are against it and understand why, I don't even have to talk to those people. We're all on the same page. And anybody who disagrees with it have already made up their mind, and they're too ignorant to understand where we stand or understand our lifestyle even, that I don't even find the point to sit down and explain to them where I come from in my heart, because that's where we're coming from.
I hear that loud and clear. But I have to tell you, from my point, when I went to jail and actually sat in a jail cell thinking, who in the H is going to give a care about some guy from Horse somewhere over there at the backside of a horse on East Central Alberta? Well, I have to tell you that was reported in the Jerusalem Post that farmers were thrown in jail in Canada for hauling their grain. So
it'll go.
I'm not trying to be arrogant here. I'm only trying to tell you from my heart to your heart that you can make a difference.
Right.
There are a lot of people who have their minds
and
made
we're
up.
not going to give up. I don't think that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I detected that.
No.
And please don't give up.
Don Vincent from Hanna. And just in regards to that, Rick, telling and talking to everybody and everything else, another really effective way is write letters to all the ministers. Send one letter to each minister. because my understanding is, and I know they've got to do it, is if you send them a mail letter, they've got to give you a written response. So if everybody here started sending a letter to every minister, and everybody you know, get them sending a letter to the ministers, pretty soon they're going to be overwhelmed with them. And they won't have time to deal with anything else. They'll have to deal with them.
Well, that's a good point, Donnie. And you know, sending an email is one thing. Some of the websites now have actually had their email addresses taken off, you know, off the thing. And so you kind of wonder, why would a government agency do that, take those names and cards and letters? We even took to reading out the phone numbers of those 15 MLAs, NDP MLAs. We would read it out in the legislature. So it's recorded in Hansard, so it's public information. And, well, it really is. You know, it's like our office number here, 4333, or Hanna or Drumheller is 811 or 8181. Stettler is 4284, I think, right? So, you know, it's public information. So, but Donnie's right. I mean, when you have a written letter, handwritten letter, it has to be responded to, or, well, it doesn't have to be, but it should be professionally responded to in that way. You make your point well known. I just would like to close with a story here from an old fellow over at I went to his funeral at Little Gem, Steve Sankey, for those of you who maybe know him, because there wasn't many people around that didn't. But he used to say that a stranger is just a friend that you haven't met yet. So when you're at a Costco lineup, or when you're at the Timmy Hortons lineup or whatever, you know, and John's got this idea of these signs, or maybe there's decals. Our constituency association, some of the fundraiser ladies, Evelyn Sherson just over there, they came up with bumper stickers that say, "Don't blame me, I voted Wildrose." You know, I mean, you continue to get that message out. And, you know, back to my thing, you know, like I said, I had no clue that the stars or the constellations were going to line up such that we could actually, partially through our activism, get federal legislation changed. And so that's my enthusiasm. If we can change federal legislation through a small group, why can't we change provincial legislation through a large group?
Can I go one more time?
It's a nickel a minute.
Okay, I got 35 cents here in my pocket. I heard questions in the crowd. How do we change this? And that's a really good question, because I've had people yelling at me in restaurants. How do you do this? Okay, how many in this room have people that live, their relatives or anybody they know lives in Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton? How many? Thank you. The cities voted them in. There's 15 ridings in Calgary. There's 2 ridings in Red Deer. There's 20-some ridings in Edmonton. If you know people in these cities, in January, we have about 800 volunteers ready to go into these ridings and collect signatures from constituents in that riding to, like I said earlier, get 20% of that constituency that are in protest of their MLA. And I'm pretty sure if this government enacts one more thing, we're going to get that 20%. So this is what we got to do. We have to talk to the people in the cities that voted them in. We didn't vote them in. Is there any NDP in this room? Please stand up. Thank you. And that's my point. We know a lot of people in the city. If we talk to these people, when you phone into the city and you order something, talk to them about Stand Up Alberta and say, how do you feel about this government? I'd have had people cough on the phone. And they'll say, what'd you say? And I said, how do you feel about this government? So when you deal with people in the city, make them aware of what's happening. Tell them, well, they're doing this to the farming industry, so you know for sure you're going to be paying about 30% more for your food. You've already increased your corporate taxes by 20%. Personal income tax is going up. You're going to be paying way more and you thought of making. And if you don't get rid of this government real soon, the way they're killing industry in this province, you're not going to be working either. And trust me, they're going to get spurred on by that thought of not working and no money.
No
So
pun
this is your
intended
voice.
there, John, with the word spurred, right?
I like spurred. But that's the thing, is that if you folks talk to your relatives, talk to friends, if you're on the phone to somebody in Calgary, if you email somebody, push that, because we have to vote this out in the cities, because that's where they got in. So if we could do that, then we've stood up for Alberta, and we can take their furniture out of this parliament. Thank you.
I like that. Okay, you guys, it's coming around to a couple hours, and I can't top that about taking their furniture out of the parliament. That's good. Maybe we'll have revolving chairs. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I can't give you any more enthusiasm or wisdom than what we have here tonight. I'm pleased and proud that you came out, and I'm glad that you're not throwing stones or rocks or anything. We need to go forward and call my offices if there's anything as we go forward with this legislation with some legality or something that you think of, or as we go forward into January with how this is all working out. Let our offices know, and we can transfer it on. That's why these guys are here. Gary's in Stettler there Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Pat's full-time in Drumheller. Laura's Tuesdays and Thursdays here in Hanna. And that's what they're there for. So if there's no further questions, thank you very much for coming. Sir? No, to my knowledge, Pat, are you aware? Is the rally still going on Tuesday? Yes, it is. Oh, okay. Yes. I guess maybe I'm so happy to get out of that place I don't want to go back there. Yeah.
Okay, Rick, I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Questions from some friends of mine. If we already have a plan that's better than WCB, is it legal for the new dumb party to force our employees to take less?
To my understanding, it has to be WCB only.
So
yes.
But the question is it legal?
Yes, I believe it would be, because the legislation is saying that it has to be WCB mandated insurance.
Okay, so then now what I told my employee this morning, quite likely you'll be let go unless you stand up and fight for this, because you know you're getting less. So
I've heard that. I've heard that already from other employees where they're giving living accommodations, they're giving other benefits to enhance their paid wage, but now the WCB thing is going to be a straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, even in our operation, and we have a humble operation relatively to some, and I haven't calculated. I haven't even had a chance to calculate the full effects on our farm.
And I guess then the second question is why isn't there more guys like the young guys standing up that know that they're going to lose their job or they're going to be taking less? Why aren't you targeting those people and saying you're the ones that need to stand up and saying this is wrong?
Well, that's where we're trying to get the information out, like through Facebook pages, web pages that these guys have. It's people are just only now starting to learn the full effect of what's going on. And I'm not even fully versed on the full effects of it.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have some coffee.
Well, it certainly was an exciting evening of, I guess mostly 100% politics. They thought they were going to have to take a a break for coffee and continue, but things had turned out quite well. There were surprisingly a lot of questions to the MLA, Rick Strankman, who is the MLA for Drumheller-Stettler, and it was found by the people that he was certainly well-spoken and presented things well. We were very impressed with the number of people that showed up because of the snowstorms and fog warnings and what have you. So it's certainly nice to see such a good turnout. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this evening's program, and that is Natago Wireless for the internet connection this evening. And also like to thank Pat Turnbull and some of the other people that are so kind to help Radio Hanna and the Wildrose Town Hall meeting that was so successful from the Hanna Community Centre. We're hoping that in our next program, regardless of whether it's politicians, various constituencies, public service from not only the community of Hanna, but the surrounding areas. So I again would like to thank the various things that are happening tonight. I got so wrapped up myself in the various things because being a newcomer to Alberta, I learned an awful lot myself. I can honestly feel the frustration and the concern expressed here from mostly the farmers in particular. Was certainly surprised about the Bill 6 that was put through as quickly as it was. Even MLA Rick Strankman had thought that there would be some excitement at tonight's meeting, which I might add, the community center in Hanna was absolutely full of concerned citizens, not only in this area, the Drumheller-Stettler area, but we also found out that we had really so many that were tuned in to Radio Hanna from throughout various provinces, and we were happy to hear that. So people are pretty well starting to leave. They don't want to get mixed up with the fog and the snow and what have you, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for visiting with us on Radio Hanna. It's something that a lot of us are volunteering to do, is to present live, if possible, or taping and then within 24 hours presenting it to you. The name of the game will be you do it and we'll present it. Anyway, it's been very, very interesting tonight. This is my return to the radio waves, and we'll have to admit a little bit rusty, but give me the opportunity to volunteer again, and I'm looking forward very much to working with the students and doing some of my own programs and having a lot of fun. So thank you very, very much for your cooperation, and we'll see you next time.